So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my guest to the show, Jane Keogh. Essentially, she helps people deal with their shit. So she looks after people and helps them from a personal and professional development perspective, operates in non-judgmental ways and helps with tools and techniques. So it's going to be a really fascinating listen. So hi, Jane. Thanks for coming on.
You're welcome, Dan. Great to be on.
They were completely Jane's words, but
you kind of built up this kind of like, it's going to be interesting. Well, it might not.
It is. It's fascinating how you've got to where you've got to. So if you could just take us along that journey, that would be great.
Yeah, I guess, well, I think you get to a certain point in life, don't you, where you realise that you've got stuff that is triggering all the time and it's having an impact on your life.
Yeah.
And so initially I got into this side of coaching because I wanted to sort my stuff out. And so I made a choice, just approaching my 40th birthday, that I needed to sort out my own shit that kept on playing a role in my life. And I was sick and tired of it. And it wasn't that I had had a bad life. In fact, I'd had a great life, but I wanted to be able to live the rest of my life in a much more flowing and happy and joyful way.
Yeah.
So initially I started off looking at my stuff, which I think is principally the most important thing, because then you can hold the space for other people to deal with their stuff. And I'm very empathetic because of my own journey.
Yeah, wholeheartedly.
So,
I definitely think you've got to look at your own yourself before you begin to give any advice to other people. It seems to be all around that age, actually. I've got a lot of friends that have done the same, and I ended up having some coaching and some mentoring, some help myself, actually, a few years ago, and it definitely helped from that side, so I can understand.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was kind of like initially like that, and then I realized that actually it sort of kind of lined up very much with my whole career. Really, I'd always been in the people side of things, sales development, sales manager, sales director, that type of thing. And I was really interested in the psychology of people and what made a person motivated, because I don't believe you can motivate anybody. I think it's motivation comes from within.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like, well, I was an early adopter of the whole, well, what goals does this person have, and how can us as a business support that person achieve their personal goals and the company their professional goals, and then marry the two things to get better results. And of course, not everybody is motivated by money for the sake of money, for stuff, material things. There are other things that motivate them. So it was that kind of thing. So I became fascinated about what made one person tick, and just understood very early on that one style of management doesn't work for across the board.
Yeah, most definitely. Everyone's unique, aren't they?
Pardon?
Everyone's unique.
Yeah, and that's very much the principle of the work that I do. It's, there's a lot of comparison. I mean, I've talked to a lot of parents of teenagers. I don't work with teenagers because their brains aren't properly formed. They don't develop properly until their late teens, early 20s.
Okay.
But it's like I say to them, you can't, no one can judge a teenager at the age they're at and say that they're going to be this, that, and the other, because they don't have a proper idea of what that person's capable of at that stage. And so it's really understanding that they are unique, and that because they're unique, it means one of a kind, and we have to treat each person as that individual rather than as a collective. And unfortunately, the school system does that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, that's why I've gone down a different route to a lot of people, actually, from a homeschooling perspective. But I think if you're teaching that many people, it's difficult to do it any other way, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it's also I'm really, really passionate about language and words that we use, and how a single statement or a word can have such a negative impact on someone. So I'm really, really keen, and you hear languaging in schools I don't think people are particularly aware of how those words impact on the belief and confidence of a youngster. So I think it starts way back then.
Yeah, definitely.
School is where a lot of the damage happens, and I don't think it's intentional, but that's where it starts.
Yeah. So where did you start, Jane, before you got into this part of it? Like, where from the sale, like what were the sales kind of roles you were doing beforehand then?
Oh, well, I guess I think I was at a girls' school in Surrey. My parents lived abroad, and the careers department was absolutely shocking. Shocking. You either were a wife and got married and had babies, or you were a secretary, or you were a nurse or a midwife. That was
Yeah,
basically
okay.
the kind of jobs that were on offer for us. And they just, I mean, I think they're great roles, but they just didn't do it for me. So I had no idea what I wanted to do. And then
I think
I ended
careers
up,
advice at that age though is like, who does know what they want to do at that point in their life? It's really challenging, isn't it? I don't think I really knew. I still don't 100%. I love what I do, but I've I could never have once imagined that I'd be loving doing what I was doing 10 or 15 years ago, let alone 25 years ago now when I was 15 speaking to a careers advice. It was always like these dream jobs or something like that, or a primary school teacher. It was always very limited, and the world's changing massively, isn't it? But so back then you had a load of choices available to you then.
well, obviously not very enticing.
No, not at all.
And I mean, this is part of the issue. You know, I remember from a very early age being told that I was in my head, I was dreaming, I was fantasizing, and I got these dreams constantly squashed.
Yeah,
And you know, if only that hadn't have happened,
it should be
what
the
might I,
opposite.
pardon?
It should be the opposite, shouldn't it?
Exactly, exactly. So I heard Joe Wicks saying to on his Instagram, you know, Joe Wicks, the body coach,
Yeah,
he was saying to his little girl, who I think is around 18 months, maybe 2 years old, he tells her every night before she goes to sleep to dream, dream big, fulfill your dreams. You can do anything that you want to. And I believe that to be true, because
100%.
if it means that much to you, the how won't get in the way.
Yeah,
You know, it's when it's, oh, I'm trying to meet that expectation of my mum or my dad or the teacher or my partner or my sister or my brother or whoever, and you're going along conforming and doing what you think's expected of you, that it then becomes hard work.
yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I think it's insane. It's your life to lead, not anyone else's, isn't it?
Exactly. And I think the school system doesn't allow for so many things and for the development of these youngsters in this day and age. So, and I mean, my heart goes out to all the parents out there and to the teenagers who are in this limbo state right now because of the coronavirus, you know, and heaven knows, I mean, there's a lot of anxiety. I've been contacted by a tutor, you know, a school tutor.
Yeah.
She's private tutor, to say, you know, is there anything you can do to help these kids? And I've got, as you know, some meditations that are available. So I've suggested those in the first instance.
Yeah, I can highly
And
recommend the gratitude, the guided meditation of an evening. I fell asleep very quickly. But it's not that, that's not how I'm judging the actual meditation itself, though. It's very, very
no,
soothing, that's for sure. And I know it's
there's a
in your subconscious, isn't it?
and I've done a visual version of that as well that you can see as well, so that if you wanted to do it in the daytime, it's, you know, with your eyes open, but it
Yeah,
still
yeah.
has the same effect. But so going back to your point, it was, I had no clue what I wanted to do. And then I just happened to come across a job in the Algarve in Portugal that was basically working for a guy who looked after holiday apartments. His father built them and then he maintained them for the people who bought them.
Okay.
So I was front of house there and I greeted the guests and showed them to the apartments and all that kind of stuff. Then got into the hotel industry, naturally. And then after a bit of disaster of a first relationship marriage, where I found out my husband was a heroin addict when I was 7 months pregnant, I ran away and came back to the UK.
Wow.
Brought my daughter with me,
Yeah.
and
Fair
then,
enough. Yeah.
and then got into hotel sales, you know, kind of like events, and then went into the car industry, believe it or not. Weird contrast.
Yeah.
And met a lot of businesses because I was fleet sales.
Oh, okay.
And I got poached from there to go and work for a company doing disaster recovery before the internet.
Oh, okay.
So we had mobile computer rooms that we sold the concept that if they'd had a disaster or a fire or flood, we would then wheel this machine in this trailer and connect them all up, and their discs were saved off-site in a
Yeah.
fireproof safe and what have you. So that was before we got the internet.
Yeah.
So and that company was failing when I joined it, and I built it up from basically losses into a very, very profitable organization and developed a sales team. So that's where I started mentoring and growing people.
Oh, okay.
So,
And how did
yeah.
you go about bringing those guys together then, especially before the internet? And like, there's a lot of, I know I get a lot of knowledge and advice and tips, and I read a lot of books, but there's also TED Talks, YouTube, all this sort of stuff. So how did you go about bringing your sales team on at that stage?
I think primarily it was instinct, total and utter instinct. I'm very instinctive and I'm very intuitive. And also I was very aware of how I'd been treated along the path and what I liked and what I didn't like, and that type of thing as well. So I always came from the theory of putting myself in the person's shoes and being interested in that person, asking them questions about them. What did they want? Why were they doing what they were doing? And really trying to sort of like get underneath the surface and understand what it was that's going to make that person grow.
Yeah. I definitely like the learnings from what you don't like, and then just doing all the other stuff that you know works and stuff like that. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, I then found that I had to deal with my own triggers, because I'd sometimes get frustrated that there was me trying to help someone and they weren't wanting to be helped, and they weren't doing the things they needed to do to help themselves improve. But then obviously understood with my own development that, you can lead the old horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So it's, I suppose, and then over the years I became much more allowing, much more in flow, much more, okay, well, this person is responsible for themselves, and helping them understand that. So but then so then that business was bought out by an American company, and my ex-husband worked for them and I worked for the other subsidiary company. So he was on two boards, I was on one board, and it went into a legal dispute, and they were removed and I was stayed, and we fell out with them, and it went to court, and it was just a messy situation. And we swore, I found out I was 3 months pregnant with my son, and it was like, we are never working for anybody ever again.
Okay, so that was like the pivotal moment. Okay.
Yeah, the stress that court created in that time was just awful, and I thought, no, never again. I'm going to be in control of my own destiny. And so we bought an established business that it was a medical agency that basically supplied operating theatre personnel to the NHS and private sectors.
And what led you to choose that? Were you just looking for businesses that were for sale at that point? And then you were finding one that fascinated you? Or
it was a very interesting business. It wasn't run particularly business-like. It had lots of potential. It was making a profit, but could make more. And and it was something that we had no clue about. And I like that challenge. I really enjoy the not knowing something and then learning it. And that's still going. My ex-husband still has it, actually.
And what that is fascinating. So you were just looking. You both decided that you were never going to work for anyone ever again, because it was just an absolute shit fest. And then you were having a look at businesses for sale. Then how would you value that business? And if you knew nothing about that profession at all?
Well, I suppose it's looking at what systems were in place. There weren't any systems in place in the first instance. But I mean, my ex-husband was the finances. He focused on the finances, and I focused on the people. We were very complementary in our
nice. Okay.
I think we found it through some kind of broker. And then we looked at all the accounts and all that kind of stuff, bit of negotiation and what have you. But then that led us into other business opportunities. We had various businesses. Where I set up a travel business because we both like traveling. That was the main reason for it, but it did very well.
So you were still, the medical one was there going, and then you thought that's not enough anymore. We're now going to do
Mhm,
travel as well.
mhm.
But okay, so then, and was that one you set up yourself, or that was one
It
you?
was it was a franchise.
Oh, okay. So you bought into a franchise on that. Okay.
We bought into a franchise. Then we also we got involved with a computer business that we bought out, and that we had that running for over 7 or 8 years. I think it made about 7 million in the end, but the sales team left overnight, and that business, it was around 9/11, and that
Oh,
business
okay.
went overnight. The lesson from that was that I was very interested in the people, but my ex wasn't. He didn't like the people side of things, and
Right.
the sales team got very disgruntled with that. They didn't feel valued by him.
Oh,
And
okay. So you weren't
overnight,
involved still at that point.
pardon?
Were you still involved with the business though at that point?
I was, but
Okay.
the sales team and sales director left, and overnight we had no business.
Wow. Okay.
So, but we
Because you
had
think
the other.
those skills would be very complementary, wouldn't you? If you've got someone really keen on the finance and that side of the business, and then you've got the other person who's really into the people skills and the softer skills, if you like.
Yeah, it was what it was. It was a big mistake, him not taking more interest, but it wasn't his skill set,
Yeah.
fundamentally. And you know what people are like, once they don't feel valued or appreciated by someone, that's the focus, and that's what was the focus.
100%. A lot of the people I'm talking to at the moment, they're all saying they work for the people rather than the other way around.
Yeah.
I think that's a great stance to have with the whole thing. I know with the day job at Oriane, we're very much focused on the people more than anything else, and
Yeah.
that really resonates with me massively. So you had three businesses on the go simultaneously, then one went, and
Yeah,
then
then we had a couple of other businesses. We've
you
had
get
something.
restless, Jane.
Huh?
You get quite restless. Like
I
what?
am I'm very restless.
Okay.
I'm very free spirited, which is why I have finally, we were talking about how, people don't know what they want to do. And
Yeah.
I did a talk in one of the schools in Harrogate, and I said to them, it's actually more normal not to know what you want to do than it is knowing what you want to do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the ones
That's
who do
good.
know what they want to do, I would question whether they're doing it because they want to or because it's an expectation they're trying to meet.
For sure. Yeah.
So I think finally the work that I do now is so varied because obviously it's unraveling the spaghetti that is everybody's emotional trauma.
But just really quick, have you got another business ongoing now, or is this your sole business that you?
Well, I suppose I don't have another business, but I have a charity that I run in Zambia.
Okay, so just before the Zambia one, so then what happened then? So you had two businesses still at that point, and then you just decided, right? No, that's it. I actually don't want to do this anymore. I just want to do something with me.
So my ex-husband and I split up, and I
Okay.
didn't want to continue to work with him.
Okay.
So I said, you have the businesses. I took the travel business, he took the medical agency,
Okay.
and I carried on with the travel business, but was more interested. I'd done very well with it, and I
Yeah.
wanted a new challenge. So I got involved for a short period of time with Action Coach to do my business coaching training,
Okay.
but didn't like the culture and moved away from that quite quickly. But yeah, and that's where
What did you like about the culture of Action Coach?
I suppose it's a bit of I don't want to sort of offend anybody because obviously this is going to be out there in the public domain, but it just didn't fit with my own value set.
Okay, no, that's fair enough. We can talk about your values a little bit later. Okay, so then
Yeah,
uh,
and that's really when my personal development journey started, in
okay,
when I committed to it, where
yeah,
I knew I had to do something because I needed to look at myself. Of course, my first relationship with my daughter's father, that was something that was not my fault. It was to do with the drug thing. But with this relationship, I played a part in it breaking down, and I wanted to understand what it was how I'd contributed to that. Because there must have been some truth in some of the comments that flew around at the time we were breaking up.
yeah,
And also, I wanted
That's what
to,
led me to do my own, actually, exactly the same reason. It's funny that there's these
yeah.
catalysts. But
So yeah, so that was it. And then I became, I mean, I trained in NLP. I did
okay.
my practitioners, and then I went on to do my
And
masters. And
what's
after that,
NLP for people that aren't aware what NLP is?
so the most famous NLP person, if you don't know about NLP, is probably Tony Robbins.
Yep.
And it's neuro-linguistic programming. So you look at languaging, you look at the programming and conditioning of a person, and you look at the way the brain processes to receive information, and how we distort, delete, and generalize, and how we embed trauma basically through language,
Yeah,
which we've
I find it
briefed.
fascinating. I once got a guy who was when I joined Orion, actually, we were looking at doing sales training, and when myself and a colleague were doing a bit of a presentation at a show, and there was a bit of nervousness around that. So we, rather than get anyone to help us out with like sales training, we got someone in who was practicing NLP, and that was a game changer. It was really interesting. A guy called Dylan Layton, actually. So sorry, Jane, I completely sidetracked, but I think I find NLP really fascinating in itself. So.
NLP is fascinating, but unfortunately it has a bad press, and it's not always used in the way it was intended for it to be used. It can be used manipulatively.
Okay.
So with positive intention, that is a good thing, but when it's not used with a positive intention, of course it's not. So it's really to understand, that point, really.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So did that. Then I went on and trained in really core dynamics of human conditioning, and that emotions have energy and they get trapped in the body because we haven't been taught how to feel. And that was really intense as well. And we all came out of that. I said to the guy afterwards, you should have taken a before and after photo, because we all looked about 10 years younger after shifting more of our
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
So
I was just, how long ago? About 3 or 4 years ago. I ended up looking at something called EFT, which is tapping, which is that emotional freedom technique, I think. And a
yep.
lot of athletes have been using it and adopting it more and more since. And that's for helping them release some like frustrations and pent up feelings and things like that at any one time. But have you done something like that as well?
I have got something like that called havening
Oh, okay.
technique. And there's a company in Australia who are working with the founders of Havening. They do a focus band, which is what measures the brain waves in your brain.
Okay.
And they're doing endurance training for athletes and using the Havening technique along it. And they're getting some very, very good results. And I worked with a chap who was involved in a cycle last summer.
Okay.
September, and helped him visualize himself achieving the 90-mile bike ride or whatever it was, and he managed to shave an hour off his time.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so he was well chuffed.
Yeah.
So it's very, very good for delinking trauma, for PTSD, but very good as well for visualization, and which is what a lot of athletes use to see themselves achieving what they want to achieve. And it's very good for basically planting positive subliminal messages, and it involves touch.
Oh, okay. So similar.
Sensory technique.
And that's called havening.
Havening, yeah.
Okay.
In fact, there's a demo on my website on the Havening page, which is for anxiety and stress around the coronavirus.
Okay. I'll have a look at that.
So it's just a little giveaway that I gave people. I think I sent you the link on LinkedIn, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, I'll double check that. There's been a lot of messages recently on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I'll have a look through it. Thanks, Jane.
Yeah. So
Yep, go on.
yeah, and that's kind of me in a nutshell, condensed version, because otherwise we'd be here forever.
And what are have you had, I suppose there's going to be a lot of stuff that you learn during the other businesses, but how easy has it been for you to set this up on your own and start running with it, and things like websites? And I know there's going to be, obviously, a lot of people have got time on their hands at the moment. So Where did you begin with setting all that up?
Well, it was 7 years ago when I got back from Zambia, because I told you before we started that I'd had a dream to run a safari lodge from
Yeah.
being a very little girl, and it being squashed out of me. And I'd allowed myself to be molded into the little round peg, which I clearly didn't fit in. And so my youngest son left home, and it was like, oh, I want to do this now. And it was like, well, where do you start? Because I'd asked my husband, did he want to do it? And he went, well, yeah, but how do you go about it? I said, don't worry about that. Do you want to do it? And he was like, well, yeah. So I wrote a list of all the places I'd been to and the people we'd met along the way, and procrastinated for a couple of days, and then thought, right, that's it. I'm going to send an email. And within an hour of sending the first email, the only email I sent, I'd had a reply from a guy saying, because I'd asked him for his advice, what did he think? Would I need to do any other training? Would Sean need to do any other training? And it was like, no, you sound perfect. And by the way, I'm looking for a management couple. Would you be interested in coming to Zambia for a couple of years?
Wow.
And that was it. It was done. So when I got back from Africa for 2 years of living in the bush, and I mean right in the middle of it, we had hippos mow the lawn, we had lions outside, we had wildlife around us, all sorts of creepy crawlies. You know, we lived on the river, there were crocodiles.
Oh,
It was just incredible, but very, very hard work, and you got cabin fever. So this lockdown for me is walk in the park, really, because we literally were 4.5 hours away from Lusaka, the main town.
okay.
And shopping was sent in every week by truck. So, but when I got back, I thought I'd kept in touch with people through LinkedIn and through Facebook. And so I had maintained the relationships that I'd had before I went away. So I didn't just disappear off the face of the earth, which was a really smart move. So if ever you're going to do an adventure, just make sure you find a way of staying in touch somehow. And so I then ummed and ahed, what do I want to do? What don't I want to do? And kept on coming back to this type of work. So it's 7 years really. And then the coronavirus hit.
And so when you realised you wanted to do this sort of work, did you then look for training in the tools that you now use? Or did you decide, I'm doing this, and then along the way think, oh, I'm going to add that to my arsenal, that to my arsenal? Or did you have all this available and then thought, I'm going to use all this? And
I've done a bit of both. I was already
okay.
trained in NLP, but wasn't using it particularly.
Okay.
So I brushed up on that. I trained in psychometric profiling as well, so DISC. So it's the what's it called? Everything DISC. So it's the only interactive DISC profile thing. So I did a training in that.
Was that like Myers-Briggs, that sort of thing?
Yeah, but this one's just more about behaviors. You've got 4 styles of behavior, but you have a tendency towards maybe 1 or 2, and how to communicate more effectively with styles that are the opposite of yours, and how to get communication running in the workplace and that type of stuff. So did that, brushed up on the NLP, did the core dynamics training, and did the havening as well. So yeah, and then just ran.
And then how did you start? So you've got, the reason why I'm really interested is because I know quite a few people that, and I think it's more to do with when you were just saying about procrastinating for 2 days. I know a lot of people would think, oh, that's not procrastinating because you've cracked on within 2 days, but clearly that's procrastinating for you. But I know a lot of people that would be putting off doing anything for a lot more time, and what they tend to do is they think, oh, I'm not ready to do it yet. I'm going to go and do this course, and then they complete that course, and they'll go, oh, actually, before I go into, oh, that's what you're like as well. So at what stage did you think I've got enough?
I was back then. So I would say probably in the last 3 years, well, maybe actually, no, it's probably longer actually. End of 2015, I just thought, oh my God, something's got to change.
Yeah.
Something's got to change. I felt like I was hitting my head against a brick wall. And the thing that had to change was I had to really use all the tools I had learned and apply them.
Yeah.
So I started a daily ritual, a daily routine, where I'd read the, I can't remember the name of the book. It's somewhere on my bookshelf here, but The Miracle Morning.
Oh, okay. I know The Miracle Morning. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just thought, okay, enough's enough. I'm giving, and people are taking. I have to give back to myself first. I've got to, let me just show you this. Got to apply the oxygen mask first. You believe it, they sell these on eBay.
Do they?
I use these for presentations. So I decided to use the principle, the analogy of, applying your own oxygen mask first. And it was the turning point for me, really. So 2016, from that, I didn't drink for 14 months. I got into a daily routine, which incorporated learning how to meditate, making sure that I was out with the dogs twice a day, doing some exercise, healthy eating, lots of water, and dealing with stuff when and as it was triggered. And I really became quite upset. When I say obsessed by it, I wanted to create a new habit.
I find that it resonates so much with me. I'd say 2.5 years ago was when I've always had a bit of a routine because of training that I do, but I really wanted to bring something else into it. And I was recommended by a coach I had at the time about a morning routine to write it down. And that included certain breathing exercises, meditation, journaling, like gratitude and a lot of this. And that was a game changer for me. So I'll put the details up for the Miracle Morning as well, actually, because it is a fascinating book. But I couldn't agree more with that, Jane, actually.
And I've got some journals that I still occasionally, I picked one up the other day and I went, oh my God, I wasn't
No, I read mine as well quite a while, about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I was like, crikey, you fit that. And that goes, I think that's the importance. If kids are making diaries, I think it's so important. It helped me.
You know what? I think that the fundamental thing for me is that realization that it wasn't going to happen. It wasn't, someone else wasn't going to make it happen. I had to make it happen. It was coming from me. It was in me. It was within me. We all have the tools and the resources that we need to be whatever we want to be.
Yeah.
But it's deciding what that is. What does that look like? And my business model has changed drastically in the last 7 years. But then I recognized that my strengths were in my intuition, in my empathy, and in my ability to help people access those tools for themselves, helping them through what I'd been through, but quicker.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, complete sense. I think with that morning routine, you're ticking off the boxes as well, aren't you? So you've already achieved like 5 things before you've even left the house at 9 o'clock. And I feel once you've got that sense of achievement and accomplishment, it really kicks on the day, and then it allows you to go out and do everything else that you wanted to actually achieve in that day. And I know you really put yourself out there on social media, from doing like lives or daily journals for everyone else to see. Did you, even with all your tools and things like that, did you find it hard to get out of that comfort zone to put yourself out there for people to see? Because I know from me doing this, especially putting videos up and putting myself out there now with the podcast, it was definitely having to get over that. I don't know what the best word would be, really. Just embarrassment from an ego perspective. Know that people might judge you on it, but just be confident in what you're doing yourself. Did you find that difficult? Because you seem to be quite natural at it.
Well, that's interesting, because I think I had procrastinated up until the point that coronavirus broke, and then I didn't even think about it twice.
Yeah, same. It's funny, isn't it? That's why I think this will really resonate with people, what we're doing at the moment.
Yeah, because it was instinctive. I have to get out there and get a message. I have to help people somehow, because obviously we're in really unusual times. People are panicking, they're feeling anxious. So I've done a few visual meditations. I've got some auditory ones for people. I shared the havening exercise as well. And I just thought, how can I help people at this point in time? Even though overnight kind of the business just went shut down, it was like, I have to do this. And it was just something was driving me. And I just thought, well, I don't understand it, but I'm going to go with it. And so I don't script those videos. They just all come out. I sometimes make fun at myself. The dogs come and they sort of like nudge my arm and the phone goes flying, all these sorts of things. I just think that is who I am. That's me in all authenticity. And if it helps someone, then wonderful. And it
No,
has
it's
been doing,
definitely.
which is lovely.
And I think that so many people, in fact, everyone, I genuinely believe everyone's got something that they can do to help other people.
Yeah.
Some people just aren't aware of what it was. There was an interview of a guy called Seth Godin, actually, I was listening to, and he was talking
Mm-hmm.
about the difference between an entrepreneur that essentially surrounding themselves with other people that can run a business and make money in that way, or then you
Mm-hmm.
have what he defines it as is like freelancing, where they're doing things like what you're doing now. So you're not employing other people to do your business. The only person that can do it is you, because you've got these tools and you can say certain things to help people.
Yeah.
And no matter who you are, you're always going to be a little bit ahead of some people that are looking to go on a similar journey to what you're going on. And I
Mm.
think that everyone's got it in them to get out there and talk and to help other people. It's just getting over that self-awareness piece, I suppose, where you're a bit nervous about it. But
And I mean, I've had a bit of a couple of negative things happen since I've been doing it. Someone told me that I was touching my face and that wasn't a great message to put out there. I touched my face
oh,
once,
literally since the corona thing, so you've been touching your phone. Oh, okay, yeah, you're
and
always going to get people pulling you up for things, aren't you?
it was interesting because I noticed I was reacting. I felt myself react. I felt this energy of something coming up. It was like a trigger, and my first reaction was like, well, what the? And then I went, whoa, focus on what's triggered in you. So I focused on that. I went for a walk. I processed it. I dealt with how I was feeling, and I thought, I know how I'm going to respond. I'm just going to say thank you very much for watching my videos, and thank you so much for pointing it out.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, you really have to. Whenever you do a video, you are putting yourself out there in the public domain, aren't you? And there's going to be people that will watch you, and it will resonate, and they'll appreciate it, and they'll like it. And then there'll be people that are watching it. And half the time, for the people that are judging, you don't know what's going on in their own lives and the stuff they're dealing with,
Mm-hmm.
and the issues they're having, or the anger that's within them. To actually spend the time judging people and commenting negatively in a way to influence someone else, I think.
Well, of course, judgment is about the other person. The person who's judging, it's about something that's triggered in them, and
Exactly.
they don't know how to deal with it, so they avoid it. They distract themselves by focusing on someone else because it's easier than dealing with the crap that's going on inside of them. Because I got a lot of stick for going out for a walk before we got the proper total shutdown, and I was
You
like, and
say it then.
so I did a video, and I just said, you know what? Okay, people have been saying that I was irresponsible. I was walking somewhere where there were no other people. I was doing it for my mental health, and I know how important it is for me to do this. So before you start casting the stone, just be gentle, be kind, try and put yourself in someone else's shoes. Because if I don't do this, it's going to affect me negatively.
Yeah.
And I just thought, no, this is how I can share a message rather than sort of like getting defensive and start attacking, because attacking is that kind of defensive rage. It's like trauma based. It's other stuff that's coming up. And, you know, where most of us have been in this fearful state of mind. And of course, the body goes into that high alert. Okay, I've got to survive.
Yeah.
And so what happens is we flight, freeze, fight, or get into defensive rage.
Yeah.
So
I
it
think
alters behavior.
I really admire you for how you handled it, because I know a lot of people. It's that classic, isn't it? If even if you get an email and you're writing back and you're like, you can feel yourself getting angry as you're responding to something, and when people tell you just to sit on it for a day before you, I don't know anyone that's ever sat on an email response or a text response for a day and then reread it the next day and gone, I'm still going to send it. I can't recall that ever happening. I think everyone's has always come to the conclusion it's probably, and the moment might have passed as well, mightn't it? It's not even you have to tone down the reply. Sometimes it doesn't even warrant one once you've had a look at that.
Exactly. But I mean, I know a guy in the last 3 weeks who reacted to an email he got, and he totally shut down a networking group like that.
Because he just had enough, and he's.
he just literally didn't give himself time to process it. He reacted in the moment, sent this email, and he could never take back what he'd said in this email. And that was it. It was over.
Wow. I'm seeing a lot of things on social media similar, where people were very opinionated. Initially it was Brexit, now it's how the government handle COVID-19, and everyone just feels that they've got an opinion on it, and sometimes it can escalate very, very quickly. So
I tell you what the problem is, Dan, is people want to be right. And if people could just let go of that need to be right, the world would be a much better place.
yes,
Because we don't have to be right. We don't have to be, there doesn't have to be a right or wrong. There could just be a difference.
opinion.
You know? Mutual respect.
Yeah.
End of.
Yeah. Yeah, I value your opinion. Please value mine. If you don't value mine, that's okay though. But I value your opinion, and that's it.
Yeah, but anyway, so yes. So I'm definitely the old me would have been in orbit with a lot of the things that have happened in recent times, but I'm literally, it's kind of like, that's not about me, that's about that person. I'm not taking that on.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. You can have it back.
And you enjoy the business you do now then, Jane, obviously.
Yeah, I love it. Love it. Really do. I love doing, I do quite a lot of speaking engagements, go and do conferences and
Oh wow, okay.
Workshops and stuff. I love that side of the business as well. And supposed to be doing something in June, which may be cancelled. I don't know. But yeah, so
depends how many people are attending, probably. So
might be online. You never know.
no, I think a lot more stuff will be online indefinitely, won't it? Where it's possible.
Yeah. But I love that moment where I see someone who comes in to see me, where they are. I mean, I generally speaking have professional people who come to see me, who are wanting some kind of breakthrough, and it's that moment that it's like the light bulb's gone on, and they go, oh yeah, okay, and they can see that there's light at the end of the tunnel, and I just love that.
I
And
think
seeing
everyone should have a coach or mentor of some sort. I think it really helps, especially when someone's got skills like you've got, obviously, that can help. How would you go about with the business you've got, and the website's great? How do you attract clients, or how do you find clients to work with?
primarily word of mouth.
Is it?
I've had some stuff through LinkedIn,
Okay.
but I think that's almost word of mouth, if that makes any sense, because people, generally speaking, watch what's going on in terms of behaviors and interactions, and it's like they already kind of know you because you know someone that they know, and that's how they've seen your interactions. And I think it's that whole how you conduct yourself. You know, I am who I say I am my brand. It's kind of like I walk the talk the talk.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think at the moment it's kind of, I could get consumed with worrying about it, but it's a waste of energy. So I'm thinking, what can I do to change things? What can I do? It works very well online as well.
Sure, definitely.
But it's just looking at doing some online courses, which is kind of what I'm doing to keep myself busy at the moment.
Yeah.
I
always find it fascinating when there's a brand like yours, because your brand's literally you, isn't it? So you're still creating a brand, but essentially it's just you. As in Jane Keogh's your website as well, isn't it? How do people get in touch with you if they want to?
They can either email me directly, which is jane@janekeogh.co.uk.
Yeah.
Or they can contact me through my Facebook page or my LinkedIn or Instagram, or they can give me a call.
Literally searching on your name on all those platforms, they'll come across you easily enough.
I'm very easy to contact. My contact details are on my LinkedIn profile.
Okay.
I just, I mean, it's like when people connect with me on LinkedIn, I just say to them, you know, in the first instance, I'd like to get to know you a little bit. So I'm happy to connect with you, but please don't sell at me straight away.
I'll put you on the links anyway, so people can get in touch with you. Hopefully it won't.
That's perfect. But so I mean, the key thing at the moment is be aware of your thoughts. watch what you do with your thoughts, because what tends to happen is we grab hold of the thought, and then the thought turns into a story, and then the story turns into a drama, and then the drama turns into a storm, and then the storm becomes a catastrophe.
Yeah.
So worrying about what's going to happen is just a waste of your energy. So bring yourself back into the moment, focus on something positive, because when you're doing something, you're taking small steps towards positive action, you feel better.
Yeah, most definitely. I think
And
someone
if you
else
get
told me another, I think it was like the definition of fear was false expectations appearing real.
yeah,
So people getting really worked up in it. It's like I've said to people at work in our sales team, the account managers, they'll be going to a meeting and they'll be getting really anxious about what they think the meeting might go like, only to come and phone me up after it and say, well, that was a great meeting. And it's like, of course it will be, because you're trying to do everything you possibly can to help out someone. So it's always worse in your head, isn't it?
fear, generally speaking, other than the primal fear, and the problem is the brain can't tell the difference.
Yeah.
It's what we tell ourselves it is. But fear, the fear that is created through our thoughts, is actually an illusion. It's a projection based on a previous experience that we think might possibly happen in the near future.
Yeah.
It's a fairy tale. Let go of it.
But the future hasn't even happened. So you're getting scared about something that hasn't even happened yet, which is insane. Easier said than done, though. Hence why you
It
need
is.
people like you to help with tools.
But the thing is when you get into overwhelm, you shut down your ability to think clearly and to be creative.
Yeah.
So breaking state, which is when you start to get yourself really wound up and you're feeling really anxious, getting up, going for a breath of fresh air, going for a walk, connecting with nature, it all helps. Looking at your breathing, focusing on your breathing, that just brings you back into the moment. It lets go of the thought.
Yeah. Breathing's very important. And I mean that in the best part. I don't mean just fundamentally to life. I mean just, breathing can literally have such a big impact if it's done in the right way. Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Jane. I really appreciate you coming on.
You're really welcome, and it's great to meet you finally, because we've been
There's been a few exchanges, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect.
But if anyone has any questions or want to get in touch, I'm happy to jump on Zoom and have a chat.
That's amazing. Cool. Thanks, Jane. Enjoy the rest of your Monday.
Thank you.
Speak to
You
soon.
too. Take care.
Cheers. Take care. Bye.
All right. Cheers. Bye.